Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead, Season 7. And what I want to do in this video is look at Carl and look at whether his actions against the Saviors was heroic or idiotic, and what I think he's going to do in the next several episodes of The Walking Dead. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I suggest you exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so I think that Carl as a character has really been a character that as he has grown, I think we've learned to like, appreciate, respect a little more. At least I have. I know there's been a lot of people that have looked at the character and have been very mixed about him, but I have to say that I've really enjoyed the development of Carl since the days he was told to stay in the house in season 2 to what he has become now on the show. I think that it's just incredible, the development that he has had. And I think a lot of that has to do with Rick. I think that in many ways, Rick has instilled in Carl this idea of when we encounter a threat, when we encounter bad people, we fight them. We don't give in, we fight. And I think that we saw that with the governor, we saw that with the claimers, we saw that with Terminus, we saw that with the wolves. I think we've seen that Rick has repeatedly shown Carl the way that he likes to deal with things, and that has rubbed off on Carl. And in a way, Carl feels the same things that he feels that Rick does. And in a sense, I think that we have seen Carl go a step further than Rick has at times. You saw that whenever Carl shot Jody in the season 3 finale. I don't know if that's something that Rick would have done or not. It's hard to say. You kind of parallel the moment between that and maybe when Rick shot Officer Bob in season 5. Maybe there's a little bit of a parallel there, but I think that in a sense, Carl has really developed, in a sense, to almost believe and feel stronger than Rick about fighting and what it takes to fight. And I think although part of that comes from the fact that he is still young, you see a lot with the younger generation. I mean, this is just biological. It's nothing against anybody, but younger individuals tend not to understand the consequences of their actions until they get a lot older. You see more of that with youth, and that's just been something that psychology, biology, all of that has shown based on our development. And I think that in a sense, that holds true for Carl as well. And I do debate, how I feel about his actions, because we saw in the season 6 finale, right before the Saviors surrounded Carl and the group, Carl was saying, look, we're going to be okay. We're going to get Maggie to the hilltop. We're going to fight these people. Dad, they're nothing. We need to fight them. But of course, they realize the big threat that they are up against. But Carl doesn't blink an eye. When Negan was going around and taunting everybody, Carl just shrugged it off, stared at him, gave him the evil eye. And Negan, was impressed with the way that he viewed Carl. And of course, we saw in the season 7 finale, the premiere, that Carl was willing to have his arm chopped off in order to protect people, in order to let himself and the rest of the group live, to have that chance. And I think that that was a very brazen moment of Carl's. I think that you look at Carl, and that's when you really start to know that he has inherited a lot of what his father believes. I think Rick would have done a couple of things to protect his people. We saw the way he fought against the walkers. I mean, you saw Rick saying, look, I'll do it. I'm willing to do that, Negan. If you want to chop my arm off, go ahead and do it. I would do that. So I think that we see that Carl is more like Rick every day. But I think, again, he doesn't really understand the consequences of his actions at time. But the other thing, too, is I think he knows that he can get away with it a lot easier based on his perceptions. Because if we remember in the last episode, in the episode Service, we saw that the Saviors tried to take the medicine and Carl shot at the wall, basically threatening the guy, telling him, you're not taking our medicine, or, the next one goes in you. You see that Carl, I think in many ways, I think he was trying to maybe provoke a fight. Maybe he's trying to send a signal to somebody, or that's just him acting on his own. I think it could be a mixture of the two. But Carl doesn't realize the consequences of doing something like that, whereas Rick does. I think that the thing is also Rick has eyes on him. If Rick even bats his eye the wrong way at Negan, Negan could overreact and do something terrible. Negan knows that's how he can affect Rick. Carl, on the other hand, though, at this point, it's not something that Negan has been able to figure out yet, nor is it something that he's really been confronted with. Because even when Carl did this, Negan was kind of like, hey, I get where you're coming from, kid. I absolutely understand, but I can't take any of this. And I mean, he could have killed Carl right there, but I think that he knew that if Negan knew if he killed Carl, then he was just going to set off a chain reaction of events that were not going to end well. He would not be able to keep Rick in line if he were to do that. So I think that Carl also realizes that he can get away with things a lot better than Rick can. Part of it is because of his age. Part of it is because of the way that Negan perceives him. And you kind of saw that in the episode Service, that more people, depending on who they were able to get away with things. Like you saw the way that Rosita was kind of just, batting her eyes at Dwight and having an attitude. I mean, nobody did anything about that. You saw the look that Michonne was really giving Negan as well, and Negan kind of disregarded that as well. I think it shows that Negan doesn't really respect women. I think we kind of see that as a theme in the comics, and I think it's the same thing in the television show as well, because I was very surprised that he didn't act on that, but I think it just goes to show the weaknesses that Negan has, but also that he's intelligent. And I think that Carl has realized that, and he's using that to his advantage. Now, I think that in many ways, Carl is really trying to keep the minds of everybody in the community open to fighting. I think he wants to, in a sense, send a message saying, look, they can be beaten. We can do something about this. They are not dangerous or they're not impermeable, if you will. We can fight them. They can be defeated. And I think that's something that Carl wants to do, and that's why he did what he did. But I think on the other hand, too, it was kind of reactionary without thinking about the consequences. And as we saw, the guns were taken away. All of the guns were taken from the community. And it could have gotten worse. I mean, honest to goodness, I think that Negan could have taken somebody else in the community and killed them in retribution for what Carl did. Maybe that would have taught Carl a lesson, but maybe not. I don't know. Because ever since season 2, when Dale died, we saw that moment when Dale died. I think that's another thing that continues to motivate Carl, this idea of not letting threats go, not letting things get in the way, because he didn't kill the Walker came back and killed Dale. And ever since then, Carl really hasn't been faced with any life or death consequence events. Him shooting Jody kind of resembles that thought process, but Carl really hasn't been responsible for anybody's death ever since then, and it makes me wonder if Negan would kill somebody, if that would set Carl straight. I'm not sure, but I definitely think that I'm on the fence about Carl's reactions. I think a lot of it is what I just discussed, and I think that really Carl is just fortunate that he's able to play the same game that Negan does against Negan, I think, and he realizes that Negan won't do anything to him because obviously that would set Rick off and it'd be, end game for the Saviors. I mean, that would just not turn out well at all. Now, we see in the next episode that Carl and Enid may be going over the walls. We know that Enid will, but whether Carl will go with her is definitely something that is up in the air. I personally think that Carl will go. I've been wondering where they are going to go. They might just be going off on an adventure. It might be that Carl is just going to try to bring Enid back. But one of the things that I was thinking about was that one of two things might happen in this next upcoming episode with Carl and Enid. Either Carl is going to get kidnapped by the Saviors because they might run into them. There might be something that happens, and as a result, Carl is taken. Carl might sneak away in one of the trucks. But another thing that I was thinking about was that maybe Carl and Enid are going to the hilltop, because obviously you see that Enid and Carl have this connection, and you also saw that Enid had a connection with Maggie and Glenn, and I think that in many ways Enid would like to see how Maggie is doing, would want to be with her, to be with her friend in this moment. So I think that might actually be where they're going, and as we know, the Saviors are going to go to the hilltop in the next episode. So it may be that Carl might end up sneaking into a truck at that point. And we see that one of the episode titles coming up, episode 7, is called Sing Me a Song, I believe. And this is a very big reference to an event in the comic books when Carl snuck away in one of the trucks when they went to Alexandria, and he gets out and he has Abraham's machine gun and he kills several of the Saviors. When that happens, Negan comes out and he's like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, what happened? And of course, he sees Carl, he sees him, and, Negan is very impressed with Carl. And in a sense, Negan kind of shows Carl around the sanctuary, shows him, who he is, what they're about, what's going on, but also at the same time to punish Carl for, killing several of his men. He can't let that go unanswered. So he makes Carl take off his eye patch and he makes him sing a song. And I think that in many ways, Negan wanted to humiliate Carl. And I think that we're going to see in the next couple of episodes, I think that Carl, no doubt, is going to go back to the sanctuary. What he's going to do when he gets there could be very similar to what he does in the comic books, or it could be different. It might be that he might take somebody hostage, might be that he might confront Negan in his room, and that might result in Negan and Carl having a discussion. Could be a lot of things, but I think that Negan is currently trying to find a way to find Carl's weakness. And I think that what you're going to see is that he is going to try to exploit those things about Carl. Obviously, Carl being shot in the eye, being disfigured in the face, might be something that's still hard for him. In the comic books, Carl's a lot younger. It does bother him because he's a kid. And, of course, Carl is still a kid in the television show, but he's more like 15, 16, maybe even 14, somewhere around there. So maybe he's a little bit more mature. Maybe Negan might not be able to get to him, but he still might. And I think there's a very good chance that Negan is going to exploit Carl's eye to humiliate him and to make him weaker. And I think that's going to be something that will happen to Carl. And I really think that Carl might end up being the point where this battle between the Saviors and the communities might start. One does wonder if Negan will bring Carl back to the Alexandria safe zone, and from there you might see Rosita doing something. Maybe some other people from other communities might be there. You might see potentially something happen there, where maybe something might happen in Alexandria. They might attack there. Could be nothing, but I think that what Carl will do will be essential to what happens, and I think he will go back to the sanctuary within these next couple of episodes, and we will see those iconic moments from the comics play out. So I'm very interested to see how it goes. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.